Hello friend, welcome back. In our previous video, I have already discussed about that things with you, how can add one of the form, that means our model form in particular that position, and from here if you want to insert your first name, last name and the instrument, then you can insert it, right? So in this video, I want to discuss about that relevant URL. So for redirecting our this page, that means from our home page to our add form, so that is actually our form add, and for redirecting this here I have defined some of the URL. So if you go to our code, into this code in our that is our index, right? Into the index here I have defined as a slash form and then slash. So here I want to show you one thing, like here if you don't use that slash, what will be happen? Like I just click as a save all. Okay, I just click as a save all now and go back and refresh it again, and I want to add new one, and I just simply define as the and the Now click as a submit. Now you can see it's now redirected to our form. And also if you check that things in our database, so if you refresh it, go to our musician, and into the musician here you can see it's also saved in our default database. So into the database I have already created that table as a musician. It's also successfully inserted it on here, right? So now here if you now go to again with the add new, now you can see what actually happened. So if you don't use that slash, automatically it will be created another URL into the form area with the slash. Okay, so for the reasons here I have defined as a slash in particular that area. So if you use it, then it should be working perfectly. So for the reasons actually I am using it, I hope it's very much clear to you right now. Okay, so now you can see that is also showing our and the perfect. And also if you want to add another link, like there is our add new, into this add new page, that is our forms, into the form page. If you don't want to insert any data, if you want to redirect it to our home page, then here right now I have to actually click as a back button. But here I want to define another link for this one. So that is in our form HTML. So now go to our form HTML and into the form HTML. After that, okay, after that I want to take another href. So I just simply define as a href, and here I want to define it should be redirected to our home page, home, our URL as a slash, and here I define as a back. Okay, that means it should be redirected to our back page. Click as a save all. Now refresh it. Yeah, you can see that is actually the back button. So if you click as a back, then it should be redirected to our home page, add new one, and the back. Perfect. So friend, here I have used this type of one of the URL, right? So that is if you, when you actually creating some of the advanced level project, then that is actually not that good practice for creating your all that URL like that way. Then you have to actually face a lot of the issues. For the reasons here, we will need to create one of the relative URL. So how can create this relative URL in this video? I will show you that things with a live example. For adding this relative URL, you have to work in our application, into this application, that is our URL, right? So into this position, first of all, here you have to define some of the app name. That means in particular that area. So after this, okay, after this I want to take one of the variable as app underscore name, and then here I just simply define that name, whatever you want. So right now I just simply define as a fast app. Okay, that is actually a spelling mistake, but I'm actually using it on here. So if you want to change any name, you can change it. So right now it's okay with me. I just name as a fast name on here. So I just simply define that name will be as a fast app, and I just take that things with this one, that is our app name, right? So now we can actually define all that our URL with using this relative URL. So now we have to use it. So I want to use it. Like here in our form HTML, into the form HTML, I have defined that back one of the link, and also in our index, into the index I have defined as a form, right? So now if you want to use that relative URL, then you have to I just simply remove it. And now here I want to use first of all the second bracket, and then the percentage, the double percentage, and into this double percentage area, first of all you have to define one of the keyword. I just define that keyword as a URL. Okay, and into this URL, after this we have to define our app name. So in our URLs I have defined our fast app name as a fast app, right? So whatever the name you will put on here, you have to defining it. So that is actually your app name. So I just simply now copy it, and now in index HTML here we have to pass it. And after that you have to define that clone, and after that clone you have to define your URL name. Like if you go to our URL, and into the URL here you can see I just simply defined some of the path name as a form for this one, and also I define another path name, that means our home path name. I have defined that things as an index. So that is the reason actually I'm using that name. So now you don't need to use this URL. Here you have to define this path name as a this form. Okay, so now I just simply copy that name, and after this here I just simply added our this form. Okay friend, so that's all you have to do. Now if you click as a save all, I just click the save all. First of all I want to check it, everything is working perfectly. Now go here, refresh this page, go to our add new. Yeah, you can see it's now perfectly redirected to our form page. And also here I have defined that back page, and back page means it should be redirected to our index, right? So for the index I have already created one of the URL, so now I want to do that things again. So that is our back page I have defined in our form, that means here. So right now I don't want to display that things like that way. I want to display it with our using our relative form. Alright, so into this relative form, first of all you have to define that second bracket, then double percentage. So into the double percentage you have to define the keyword as a URL, right? And then our app name. So I have defined our app name in our URL. I have defined that app name as a fast name. So I just simply copy it. Now here I define our fast app name, and then you have to define that column, and then our name, that means our path name. So if you go to our URL, into the URL for our path, that means for our index, I have defined that our name will be as the index, right? So whatever the name you will put in particular that position for this specific path, then you have to define this name. So I just simply define that name as index. So I just simply copy it, and now in our after this column here you have to define. Okay, I have defined as the index. Perfect. So friend, that's all you have to do. That is our back page. Click as a save all again. Now refresh it. Now click as a go back. Perfect. So that is our add, and now there is a back. So everything is working. So now I'm actually using that relative URL. So I think you can well understand about the relative URL. So friend, we will create 3 projects. As I told you before, we'll create the social one of them side, we'll create one of them blog side, and also after that we will create one of the e-commerce side. So every time all that project we will need this. So that is all that basic things, but here together all that experiences we will create 3 projects with using the Django. So in our next video, I'm going to discuss about that template inheritance. How can working with this in our next video, I will show you that things with the live example. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.